Come with me.
You're listening to the Alchemical Tech Revolution, and I am your host, Wayne McRoy. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we're going to discuss the ancient battle for the minds of men. Going back through history, we'll see that there's always been this power struggle between two different sides of opposing forces, all working towards a unified goal, but coming at it from different approaches. And we're going to look back tonight into some of the older histories of some of the secret societies, and we're going to hear directly from the horse's mouth, folks, just who it is that these people believe that they are, who it is that they believe that we are, and just exactly what they think of us and what they think of themselves, and how they define this disparity in this gap between social classes, so to say. So we're going to look through, and we'll see within the writings of the secret societies here who this power elite group is that runs the world, what they think they are, who they think they are, and who they think we are, and why they seem to work against us at every turn. And we're going to go back a little bit into the history here, and we're going to explore a couple of these ideas. And tonight, we're going to primarily be reading from a Rosicrucian book written by Mr. Max Heindel. Okay, he was a well-known Rosicrucian and one of their more prolific writers, and he understood many things about occult science and many of these occult philosophies that the Rosicrucian order brought forward. And make no mistake about it, all these secret society groups today, they all espouse many of these same ideas in different iterations or different descriptions, so to say. But it's all the same teachings at the core of it. Okay? So we're going to get right into it here. So we'll be reading from the book. And this is a book, if you could find it online. It's available out there. It's open source. It's in the public domain. And it's called Freemasonry and Catholicism by Max Heindel. And we're going to start right here in the beginning of the book. And we're going to begin reading. And as we go, I'll start breaking down some of these ideas for you. Excuse me. Clear my throat a little there so I can talk without choking here while I'm going along. All right. The Rosicrucian Fellowship aims to educate and construct, to be charitable even to those from whom we differ, and never to vent the venom of vituperation, spite, or malice, even upon those who seem deliberately determined to mislead. We revere the Catholic religion. It is as divine in its essence, as both were born to further the aspiration of the striving soul, and both have a message and a mission in the world not apparent upon the surface today, because man-made ceremonial, as a scale, has hidden the present articles to remove that scale and show the cosmic purpose of these two great organizations, which are so bitterly antagonistic to each other. We do not aim to reconcile them, however, for though they are both designed to further the emancipation of the soul, their methods are different, and the attributes of the soul fostered by one method will indeed be very different from the quality of the soul nurtured in the other school. Therefore, the strife must continue until the battle for the souls of men has been lost and won. The issue is not, however, the persistence of the Masonic or Catholic institutions, but the outcome will determine the nature of the training humanity will receive in the remaining periods of our evolution. We shall endeavor to show the cosmic root of both these institutions, the purpose of each, and the training which each will inaugurate. If successful, also, the nature of the soul quality which may be expected to result from each method. The writer is not a Mason, and sorry, folks, I'm going to pause there. The rest of this is all in capital letters because he wants to make it abundantly clear here that he's not a Mason, okay? So let me read exactly what Max Heindel says here. He has this all in caps, so this is important to keep in mind as we go through the rest of this discourse. The writer is not a Mason, and thus he is free to say what he knows without fear of violating obligations, but he is a Mason at heart, and therefore frankly opposed to Catholicism. Okay, and I'm going to pause right there, folks. So you see, The writer, he is a Rosicrucian. He claims he's not a Mason, so he's not bound by their blood oaths. Rosicrucians take different oaths than Masons, but it's all basically the same idea. So he's not going to be giving away the bank here, folks, just so you know. But he does put down some important ideas and expresses very plainly some of the beliefs of many of these people. But also, he speaks up and says that he is opposed to Catholicism. And to a certain degree, you could also say the rest of Christianity as well. Because you see, and we'll get into this here a little further as we go. We'll explain some of these ideas in more detail. But he's making it clear here, he's not a Mason, although he does have some of the same beliefs as Masons and is opposed to the Catholic Church, or Catholicism, as he says here. Not necessarily just the Church, but Catholicism. And that's kind of a broad term. It's a very specific sect of Christianity that he's talking about, but that would also infer that much of Christianity he has a problem with as well. But I don't want to put words in his mouth. We'll get there. He'll put his own words out there very soon. Let's continue the reading, shall we? Our opposition is not fanatical or blind to the merits of the Catholic religion, however. The Catholic is our brother as well as the Mason. We would not say a disparaging, irreverent word against the faith, or those who live by it, and should we seem to do so in any passage, the wrong will be due to inadvertence. The reader is requested to note that we distinguish sharply between the Catholic hierarchy and the Catholic religion, but the former are also our brothers. We would not throw stones either physically or morally, for we know our own shortcomings too well to attack others. Thus, our opposition is not personal, but spiritual, and to be fought with the weapon of the Spirit, reason. We firmly believe it to be for the everlasting good of mankind that the Masons should win, and cannot therefore be sure to present the Catholic side in a very perfectly unbiased manner, but we ask our students for whom this is written to believe that we shall try to be just. Of the cosmic facts we are certain, but bias may creep into our conclusions. Therefore, each must use his reason to test what we have to say, vis-a-vis, prove all things and hold fast that which is good. And I'm going to pause there, folks. So, the Rosicrucians and many of these other secret society orders, they believe that in this battle between Catholicism and Freemasonry, that the Masonic side of this should win. See, and we'll get a little bit deeper into this as we go through here. But you could see where some of this conflict comes from now, can't you? When you understand that many of those people in positions of power in this world are diametrically opposed to, the things that have been done here in the name of the church. And, I think we all have some problems with things that have been done here in the past in the name of the quote-unquote church, speaking directly to Catholicism and the Vatican, folks. And that is where he does make a little bit of a distinction here, because he's talking about the difference between the Catholic hierarchy and the Catholic religion. So, in some ways, you can't disagree with some of what he's saying, but in another way, they've kind of taken it a little bit of a step further. And we'll get to that as we go on here, and we'll see what exactly has been done here through the ages and what's going on today. And we'll see how this is relevant today as we get going here. But it's important that we go through and we lay down this groundwork for people to better understand this spiritual battle that we are fighting here today, and where it originates from, and who some of the key players are within it. So let's continue on with the reading here. The great law of analogy is everywhere the master key of all spiritual mysteries, and although Masonry and Catholicism do not begin till we arrive at the Earth period, they have their prototype in the earlier periods. We shall therefore briefly touch upon the essential facts. And I'm going to pause there, folks. Listen carefully to what he just said here. He said the great law of analogy is the master key of all the spiritual mysteries. Okay? Keep that in mind. Analogy. They're talking about archetypal ideas, mythologies, things like this. These very subjective type things. These are the key to all spiritual mysteries. Okay, so they speak in symbols or archetypes. And usually they use the archetypes of mythology in many of these ways. And what we're going to touch on here, what we're reading next that he's talking about, he says here that Masonry and Catholicism do not begin till we arrive at the Earth period. That would be like the current period we are in, according to many of these occult sciences and occult teachings. And we'll get into that. They believe in earlier ages man has actually come through a different type of evolution as what people would think of as evolution. All right. In many of these occult sciences, they believe there's a stepping up process through periods of evolution and different types of evolution that we step into in different ages that our souls and stuff are in at the particular time. And we'll see here, and you'll begin to understand a little better as I read further here. But let's get back to it. Okay, in the Saturn period, the Earth in the making was dark. Heat, which is the manifestation of the ever-invisible fire, was the only element then manifest. Embryonic mankind was mineral-like, the only lower kingdom of evolving life. Unity was everywhere observable, and the lords of mind, who were human then, were at one among themselves. And I'm going to pause there, folks. There's a lot of big ideas bound up in that little paragraph there. Okay, first things first. We're talking about the Saturn period, okay? This is equated to, in some of the different mythologies, as the golden age of man, okay? And you'll see here the Lords of Mind. They were the humans then, and they lived in this golden age, what they're calling the Lords of Mind, who are evolutionary steps above mankind, okay? Because at that time, mankind, they're saying embryonic mankind was mineral-like, and they believe in this stepping up process, this evolutionary process, where you go through these different phases. First, you start with the mineral, and then you step up to the plant kingdom, and then you step into animal kingdom, and then human kingdom, and then the next one is what they would call either the gods or the angels, and then above that would be like the creator god, that kind of idea. See, so there's this stepping up in evolutionary layers here that they talk about within some of these occult sciences. So that's what he's referring to here, and they call these were the different ages. These are ages past, okay? And, there's really no evidence to support any of this, but these are some of the teachings that these secret schools put forward, see? And this is where the idea of evolution originally came from these secret schools, these secret teachings going all the way back into antiquity, okay? These are the teachings of the ancient mystery schools, all right? So they're the first ones to come up with the idea of evolution. So that is not something that's relatively new in the history of mankind. It was just thought about in a different way, and they took this idea and twisted it and perverted it into something totally unnatural and tied it to the eugenics movement, folks, and that's what Darwinian evolution is. It's all about eugenics. They've taken it, they've twisted it, turned it, and made it into something completely, unnatural, that won't stand within nature. And we'll get there later, but let's get back to the reading. I don't want to get too sidetracked here because there's a lot to get through tonight. In the Western wisdom teaching, we speak of the highest initiate of the Saturn period as the Father. That's all in caps, folks. In the Sun period, the root of a new element, air, was evolved and coalesced with the true fire, which, mark again, is always invisible and which manifested as heat in the Saturn period. Then fire burst into flames, and the dark world became a blazing ball of luminous fire mist at the word of power, let there be light. And I'm going to pause there again, folks. So you see, when they're talking about the element of fire, this quintessential fire, they're talking about an invisible light that just generates heat. Okay? This equates back to a lot of different occult ideas, like the black sun idea. This is what it is. This is the invisible. This is the manifestation of the invisible world into the visible world right here. This is what they're talking about. This came about in the sun period. So before the sun period, in that Saturn period, there was no light to speak of, or there was nothing as we think of it today to speak of. All was one, and all was contained within this quote-unquote heat, or this idea of fire. Okay, this is the quintessential idea of fire. And we'll get a little bit more into that, because they describe that, the author describes that here in a little more detail, in a way to think of it. And remember, earlier when he said that the great law of analogy is everywhere, the master key of all spiritual mysteries, that's what we're talking about when we're speaking of fire, the invisible fire. Okay, this is an allegory, folks. Well, it's not to be taken too literally here. So let's continue with the reading here, and we'll keep that in mind, because we left off here where it says, then the fire burst into flames, and the dark world, which would be the invisible world, became a blazing ball of luminous fire mist at the word of power, let there be light. So see, you could see the first element spoken of here from the Saturn period is the element of fire. This is, in the view of the occult sciences and of these secret mystery schools, that is the source, okay? The invisible fire. This permeates everything. That is the source of all soul, all life, all everything, in their view. So now in the sun period here, it says that there was a new element that evolved, and that would be the element of air. So we have fire and air, and these always in occult science are equated to spiritual ideas, whereas earth and water are always equated to physical ideas. So we'll see how the tying together of spirit and body, or spirit, mind, soul, and body, becomes, allegorized in these elements here as we go. But let's continue reading. I don't want to get too sidetracked, like I had said earlier. Let the student ponder well the relation of fire and flame. The former lies sleeping, invisible in everything, and is kindled into light in various ways, by a blow of a hammer upon a stone, a friction of wood against wood, and by chemical action, etc. This gives us a clue to the identity and state of the Father, whom no man hath seen at any time, but who is revealed in the light of the world. The Son, and that's spelled S-O-N, and it's with a capital S here, who is the highest initiate of the sun period, and that sun period is S-U-N, okay? So we see there, I'm going to pause there. So they're equating the idea of the invisible fire or the heat with the Father or the Creator, and they're the flame or the visible light, the visible fire with the sun, or he's equating this here to God the Father and God the Son, you see. So that's exactly what they're talking about right here when you look at it from the allegorized standpoint here. So let's continue on. As the unseen fire is revealed in the flame, so also the fullness of the Father dwelt in the Son, and they are one as fire is one with the flame in which it manifests. This is the root of all true sun and fire worship. All look beyond the physical symbol and adore our Father who art in heaven. The mystic Masons of today hold this faith in fire as firmly as ever. And I'm going to pause there, folks. So you see, he actually described the Godhead, or what we would figure as the Trinity in, Christianity. He described it very well here. See, he said, just as the unseen fire is revealed in the flame, so the Father is also manifest in the Son, you see. So this is a good description in a lot of ways of how exactly that idea works. But also, you also see here that he claims the mystic Masons, and that's a big distinction, folks. He's talking about mystic Masons. These are people that go beyond the Blue Lodge or the first 3 degrees of Masonry, okay? They're the ones that seek the occult sciences and progress further and study further in these secret societies. They're the mystic Masons. They're the ones that study the occult science. So he's saying that the mystic Masons of today hold this faith in fire as firmly as ever. So they put their faith in this as fire, the allegorical idea of fire. And that is why they consider themselves the philosophers of fire. That's why they call themselves this. Okay? And this will be important as we move on later, because we'll see what all this means. And this will tie together very soon for you folks. You'll see. Anyway, let's continue with the reading here. Thus, it will be seen that the unity which prevailed in the Saturn period continued in the Sun period. The ordinary humanity of that time has now evolved to the glory of archangels or archangels, some who were more advanced than others, but there was no antagonism among them. Our present humanity had advanced to a plant-like stage and was slightly above the new life wave started in the Sun period, and unity also here prevailed. And I'm going to pause there, folks. So see, they're saying that the ordinary humanity of that Sun period, these became the archangels, see. So they advanced, they stepped up in this next stage of their evolution, see. And humanity, back at that stage, they were the equivalent of their plant-like stage. So you see how they use this evolutionary idea. They have this blueprint where you step through, you first manifest, the base manifestation of anything is first the mineral kingdom, and then it's of the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdom, angelic kingdom, etc., etc. So this is how the steps go in their occult science of evolution here. All right, so that's what they're talking about. So each of these ages or periods that they call them, there's a new life wave starts, and when the new life wave starts, it pushes that stage that's above it up one more station here. So you see how this kind of thing causes a step, an evolutionary jump, and this is what they claim. All right. No, I don't want to get too hung up on that, but we'll see as we read a little further here. But let's read on. In the moon period, contact of the heated sphere with cold space generated moisture, and the battle of the elements commenced in all its fierceness. The heated ball of fire endeavored to evaporate the moisture, force it outwards, and create a vacuum wherein to maintain its integrity and burn undisturbed. But there is and can be no void in nature. Gonna pause there, folks. This is a very crucial idea to keep in mind. Nature abhors a vacuum, okay? There can be no void in nature. Keep that in mind. That's imperative to understanding the way reality works, all right? So when they tell you outer space is a vacuum, folks, that is an out-and-out lie that cannot stand in nature. Okay, that defies natural law, and therefore it cannot exist in that way. Even any vacuum we could create here on Earth, a man-made vacuum, we have never created a perfect vacuum. It's not possible because nature abhors a vacuum. And when you do create a vacuum, what happens? Or a partial vacuum? Well, air or whatever materials are there that are present, they rush in to fill the space, don't they? So you see, that's an important idea. I don't want to get too sidetracked there, but let's keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and, read that sentence again. We'll start over, and then I'll continue on. But I thought that was important to point out. The heated ball of fire endeavored to evaporate the moisture, force it outwards, and create a vacuum wherein to maintain its integrity and burn undisturbed. But there is and can be no void in nature. Hence, the outrushing steam condensed at a certain distance from the heated ball and was again driven inwards by the cold of space, to be again evaporated and propelled outwards, in a ceaseless round for ages and ages, as a shuttlecock between the separate hierarchies of spirits composing the various kingdoms of life, represented in the fire sphere and cosmic space, which is an expression of the homogeneous absolute spirit. And I'm going to pause there, folks. This is also known in many of the ancient mythologies and ancient philosophies as the concept of chaos. Okay, this homogeneous absolute spirit idea, cosmic space, and that's what many of the ancient philosophers of old and the Greek and the Indian and all of those. This is how they describe chaos, and this is when you go back and look at the old mythologies, the Babylonian mythologies and stuff. When they're speaking of chaos, they're speaking of what they would consider cosmic space or space. They're talking about this idea, this homogeneous absolute spirit. Okay, so that's the whole idea, and that's bound up in the term chaos in many of the mythologies. Also the religious ideas too, but let's go back to that. So let me read that last part again, and we'll move on again. So it says here, represented in, sorry, lost my place, in the fire sphere and cosmic space, which is an expression of the homogeneous absolute spirit. The fire spirits are actively striving to attain enlargement of consciousness, but the absolute rests ever clothed in the invisible garment of cosmic space. In it, all powers and possibilities are latent, and it seeks to discourage and check any attempt at expenditure of latent power as dynamic energy required in the evolution of a solar system. And I'm going to pause there, folks. So what this is describing, it's calling this cosmic space. It says that it's the cosmic space is the an analogous idea to the homogeneous absolute spirit. And spirit, it's saying here, it sits latent, okay? And it seeks to discourage and check any attempt at expenditure of the latent power as dynamic energy. So this is pure potential, okay? So think of it in that way. So spirit is pure potential, okay? And the dynamic energy required in the evolution of a solar system would be the expenditure of this latent power within, or the potential. See, so this would be the manifestation of the potential into active. So you see how there's a lot of correlation here between that, and if you want to get scientific and technical here, if you look at this in terms of the electromagnetic field, it's the same type of a thing, whereas it's a manifestation of the energy and the dissipation of energy, how it feeds in. One is the potential energy, and the other one is the direct application of energy. I don't know if I'm describing this well or not, but this is pretty much what it's hinting at here. All right, so it's saying that this fire idea is the idea of dynamic energy. So this is actual active energy, or this is the active principle, whereas this cosmic space, or absolute spirit idea, is the latent energy, or the passive type energy. This is pure potential. See, so you have potential and kinetic in a sense there. So you can see the way this whole dichotomy works. So it's the same kind of thing. So you have one keeping the other in check, and that's what it's speaking of here. And these ideas are a little bit important to touch on because I just want to make sure that people are understanding some of the implications of this. So let's read on. So they look at these from the concept of these absolute elemental ideas, and these are the philosophical elemental ideas, being fire and water, okay? So let's get back to where we read. So we just read about that. So here's where we left off. Water is the agent it used to quench the fire of active spirits. The zone between the heated center of the separate spirit sphere and the point where its individual atmosphere meets cosmic space is a battleground of evolving spirits at various stages of evolution. I'm going to read that last sentence again, folks. It's another important idea to ponder upon. The zone between the heated center of the separate spirit sphere and the point where its individual atmosphere meets cosmic space is a battleground of evolving spirits at various stages of evolution. So it's acknowledging the spiritual battle here, okay? When we're looking at that, it's acknowledging a spiritual battle, all right? It says the spirit sphere. It's talking about the fire as being the spirit sphere, and the water, which it would be the point here where the atmosphere meets the cosmic space. See, this is also describing what's talked about in the Bible as the waters above. See, many of these old mythologies and religions acknowledge what we would consider outer space as being a type of water. See, so there's that water idea once again. And this is also one of the things that is, a major source of many lies today about the nature of outer space. See, there's many reasons to believe that there's some kind of a watery aspect to outer space, okay? And that's what this is talking about. It's talking about cosmic space being, the allegorized idea of water here. Whereas the spirit sphere, it says here, or the invisible world, the invisible within, forcing its way out, these energies, these fire energies, it's being quenched in this point between cosmic space and the center of this spirit sphere. So this being the case, it's talking about a spiritual battleground where there's all types of evolution going on of different spiritual ideas in the spiritual realm here. But you can see how it relates to the concept that we're familiar with in our modern quote-unquote science, okay, of a planet and, this outer space idea, this kind of thing. But what they're describing to us is a total misdescription of what's going on. And here we could see some older ideas of what the ancients thought of these things. And as I mentioned just a little while ago, the waters above. See, this goes back to the idea of the firmament back in the Bible and how the waters above and the waters below, all of these different things. And this is one of the things talked about in Genesis with the great flood, how the heavens opened and the waters above came rushing in as well as the waters below. It wasn't just, a regular, say, rivers overflowing its banks or something as described. It was something more happened with that whole idea. So, not to get too hung up on that point, let's move along here and see what they're saying here. The present angels were human in the moon period, and the highest initiate is the Holy Spirit, Jehovah. Gonna pause there, folks. So here's what they're claiming now. The present angels, okay, were human in the moon period. So, and the highest initiate is the Holy Spirit, or Jehovah. So here they're invoking the third part of the Trinity, okay? They're saying that came about in the moon period. So far we've seen the Saturn period, which they equate as the Father, the Sun period as the Son, or Jesus in the Christian interpretation here, and then the moon period here was the Holy Spirit, or Jehovah. So see how they combined the three parts of Trinity into one through these different ages. And this is what they believe, and this is how they believe the active evolution in spirit happens, and how you step up through these different transitory phases. And we'll see as we get along here some of the other things that they believe. Okay? Let's continue on. As our humanity and the other kingdoms of life on earth are variously affected by the present elements, so that some like heat, others prefer cold, some thrive on moisture, and others require dryness. So also in the moon period among the angels, some had affinity for water, Others abhorred it and loved fire. The continued cycles of condensation and evaporation of the moisture surrounding the fiery center eventually caused incrustation, and it was the purpose of Jehovah to mold this red earth, it says in quotation marks here, translated Adam, into forms wherein to imprison and quench the spirits of fire. I'm going to pause there, folks, because that is all in capital letters. Quench the spirits of fire. Okay? So, it's an important idea to keep in mind. And here, we'll get to it because I think it describes it here in this next sentence here. So, let me read that again, and then I'll just continue on. To the continued cycles of condensation and evaporation of the moisture surrounding the fiery center eventually caused incrustation. Going to pause for a moment. So then we see the idea of the fourth element of earth. And we're talking about the philosophical elements now. Because first was fire, then came air, and then water joined in because of the cold of space, see, or the chaos. And then was water, and then the constant battle between fire and water through the air eventually produced this idea of incrustation or earth. So, that being the case, this is what they're talking about when they're saying about this continued cycle here, what had happened. So, and then it says, and it was the purpose of Jehovah to mold this red earth, translated Adam, into forms wherein to imprison and quench the spirits of the fire. To this end, he issued the creative fiat, and the prototypes of fish, fowl, and every living thing appeared, even including the primitive human form, which were created by his angels. Thus, he hoped to make all that lives and moves subservient to his will. Against this plan, a minority of the angels rebelled. They had too great an affinity for fire to bear contact with water, and refused to create the forms as ordered, but thereby they at the same time deprived themselves of an opportunity of evolution along the conventional lines, and became an anomaly in nature. Furthermore, having repudiated the authority of Jehovah, they must work out their own salvation in their own manner. How this has been accomplished by Lucifer, their great leader, will be made plain in the following articles. For the present, suffice it to say that in the Earth period, when various planets were differentiated to provide proper evolutionary environment for each class of spirits, the angels under Jehovah were set to work with the inhabitants of all planets having moons, while the Lucifer spirits have their abode upon the planet Mars. The angel Gabriel is representative on Earth of the lunar hierarchy presided over by Jehovah. The angel Samael is ambassador of the martial forces of Lucifer. Gabriel, who announced the coming birth of Jesus to Mary, and his lunar angels are therefore the givers of physical life, while Samael and the hosts of Mars are the angels of death. And I'm going to pause there, folks. There is a huge amount of information to go back over in that last paragraph here, isn't there? So we see here that the Rosicrucians, the secret schools, the Masons, all of these different secret society groups, they believe themselves to be the philosophers of fire. They equate themselves with the fire, okay? And they are in opposition to anything that is the water, or of the water, okay? So it says here, now this is according to their what would we call this? Their cosmology, I guess, is the best term for it. So according to the cosmology they're giving here, they're saying that in the moon period, the present angels were the humans then, okay? And in this moon period, the highest initiate was the Holy Spirit, or Jehovah. So now it's saying we're moving on to the next period of history, which is the Earth period, which is the current period we're in. So we're talking about the very beginnings of the Earth period. So they're saying what had happened now is Jehovah, the Holy Spirit, his task was to mold these surroundings here, okay? And it says the red earth in quotation marks. And that infers a lot of different ideas to when we're looking at the idea of red and earth, because once again we're talking about these are those archetypal philosophical type elements. So the color red is generally considered in alchemical senses to be masculine in nature, electric in nature, all of these different ideas. And earth would be the opposite. Earth would be feminine in nature, negative in polarity, whereas, the red would be a positive polarity. So it's talking about these opposing ideas, combining these opposing ideas into a physical form, okay? And it's translated as Adam, A-D-A-M, okay? And so Jehovah's task was to mold these different conflicting forces, these elemental forces, into forms wherein to imprison and quench the spirits of the fire. See, so the spirits of the fire, according to this, they were not happy with the idea of sharing space with these watery ideas, okay? Because as it said in the previous section there, about some prefer cold, some thrive on moisture, others require dryness. See, so these ideas, the sons of fire, so to say, were not happy with these conditions. Because you see, this is the active principle. These are the ones that want to manifest more greatly and don't necessarily like these watery type ideas. So what happened is Jehovah declares this creative fiat where he starts to make all the creatures of the earth, okay? And all these living things. But then there were some angels, and these were the ones that were humans in the moon period, the previous period. In the early earth period, when they were angelic, when they became angelic, they rebelled against this idea because they didn't like what was happening. See, so even though it doesn't give you a real indication as to who makes these decisions or anything, or how this all comes about, or it doesn't give you the indication that, Jehovah in this sense is the creator God. So you see how it gets a little convoluted at certain points. Who's the one that set this evolution into motion, okay? Well, according to this, whoever it was, they gave Jehovah the authority to do this, all right? But then there were angels among them, and it claims here that Jehovah, or the Holy Spirit, was the highest initiate of the humans in the moon period, see? So the humans in the moon period, they became gods or angels. So it's claiming that Jehovah is nothing but an elevated human from a previous age, okay? So this being the case, he was given this creative fiat to do this stuff. Now this is what they believe, and this is what they teach, all right? I'm not making this stuff up. This is right in their own words here. I'm just giving you a little bit of a rough translation as to what's being said here to try to make it a little more clear for people. So anyway, some of the angels, or these would be actually some of his equals, I guess you would say, because they were the same thing, even though he was the greatest of the initiates of that time, but they were also initiates. And once again, it really touches back on this idea of initiation and, secret knowledge and all these secret schools as being more important than they are. They're puffing themselves up once again. But according to their story here, these angels, they rebelled because they didn't like this. They didn't like having to come in contact with water. They wanted to be able to manifest their will as much as they wanted in a more spiritual sense. So what they did is they cut off and deprive themselves of an opportunity of evolution along the conventional lines, which were put in the hands of Jehovah at that time. And they became what it says here is an anomaly in nature. And I would say the Bible, the Holy Bible, describes it as an abomination, not an anomaly, when you look at these things. And it says, furthermore, having repudiated the authority of Jehovah, they must work out their own salvation in their own manner. So, this is a direct affront at the Christian faith in one way, shape, or form, see? So, they chose to work out their own salvation when the way was made, okay? The way was made, and we'll get there. I don't want to get too hung up on this, but I think it was important to kind of flesh out some of these points a little better. So it says here, how this has been accomplished by Lucifer, their great leader, will be made plain in the following articles. And it doesn't really tell you the following articles. It says, for the present, suffice it to say that in the Earth period, when various planets were differentiated to provide proper evolutionary environment for each class of the spirits, the angels under Jehovah were set to work with the inhabitants of all planets having moons. See, that's an important idea. So, Jehovah, or the Holy Spirit, or what we would, refer to in Christianity as the third part of the Trinity, this God, or this being, according to them, is set to work, is responsible for, and has dominion over all planets having moons. Okay? And it says, well, the Lucifer spirits have their abode upon the planet Mars. So, why are the power elite obsessed with Mars, folks, and getting to Mars and going to Mars even before they go back, allegedly, to the moon, even though they can't really accurately say that man has really been on the moon? They can't really prove it to any degree of certainty. So that doesn't make sense. The moon is closer. Why would we not establish a presence on the moon first? Instead, they're talking about going to Mars. They're obsessed with getting to Mars. See? So that being the case, why are they obsessed with the planet Mars and getting to Mars, and why are they not interested in planets like Venus, which might be a little easier actually to land man upon than, or land probes upon than Mars and stuff like that? Why are they so obsessed with it? Well, this is why. This is the home of the Lucifer spirits. See, Lucifer is associated with Mars. And then this goes on to say right here that the angel Gabriel is representative on earth. Okay, this is the messenger. And he's the messenger of the lunar hierarchy presided over by Jehovah. Okay, so we see there that Jehovah, or the third part of the Holy Trinity, the Holy Spirit, is associated with the idea of the moon. Okay? So it says that that's the lunar hierarchy, and the angel Samael, and we'll get a little bit more into him later, is the ambassador of the martial forces of Lucifer. So Lucifer is in charge of the martial forces, or the forces of Mars. So Lucifer is in charge of Mars. So once again, we could see the whole idea. Why are these elites, these power elites, so obsessed with the Mars idea? Well, because it directly relates to Luciferianism and the Luciferian philosophy, folks. See, this is their savior, Lucifer. Understand? Lucifer, the Lucifer idea, the Prometheus idea. Okay? And this, because, see, it says earlier that they must work out their salvation in their own manner. So, through the use of their intellect, the gift of fire given to them by Prometheus, Lucifer, they're to work out their own salvation this way. See? Anyway, but let's continue on here. And it also says here that the lunar angels, along with Gabriel, are the givers of physical life. Okay, so they are associated as the spirits of life. Well, Samael and the hosts of Mars are the angels of death. That's an important idea. So the Mars idea, the death idea, this is why it's a giant death cult, our society, because the people in charge are Luciferians at the core, and Lucifer and Mars, all these ideas are the ideas of the angel of death. Okay? Angels of death. I can't make it any clearer. It says right here, in their own words, this is from the horse's mouth, folks. In their own words, Mars, Samael, and the hosts of Mars are the angels of death. So the Luciferian spirits, they are the martial forces. Samael is one of them. He's the, what do they call him here? The ambassador of the martial forces. Okay. These are the angels of death. Let's continue with the reading and see what else that the Rosicrucians can tell us here. Thus originated the feud in the dim dawn of the cosmic day, and that which we see as Freemasonry today is an attempt by the hierarchs of fire, the Lucifer spirits, I'm going to pause there, hierarchs of fire is all in capital letters, so the hierarchs of fire, which he says, comma, the Lucifer spirits, so the Lucifer spirits are the hierarchs of fire, okay. Let me read that again. Just to be clear, Freemasonry today is an attempt by the hierarchs of fire, the Lucifer spirits, to bring us the imprisoned spirit light, that by it we may see and know. So let's clarify that a little bit more. So Freemasons, the hierarchs of fire, the Lucifer spirits, see, they're here to bring our imprisoned spirits light so that we can see and know. That's what they believe. Okay, so they put this affront on God, okay, on the God of this place, who I would say is our creator God, but they see him as being something different. They equate him to just another, initiate from an older time that elevated to that next step and was given charge over this place, and they had a problem with him. Okay, that's what they're claiming here. So they're saying that this God, Jehovah, imprisoned many of these spirits of fire in this corporeal form here, corporeal form. And because they're imprisoned spirits here, they're trapped and, they are cut off from spiritual things. So therefore, it's the job of the Lucifer spirits to send light so that they may see and know and be freed from here. Okay? So that's what they claim, and that's what they claim Freemasonry is about and what these secret societies are about. And they're obsessed with the idea of light and more light. So you see what they're talking about? Anyway, let's get back to the reading here. Catholicism is an activity of the hierarchs of water, and that's all in capitals, folks, and places holy water at the temple door to quench the spirits seeking light and knowledge and to inculcate faith in Jehovah. As the vernal equinox is said to be at the first point of Aries, no matter where in the constellations it falls by precession, so the point where the human seed atom comes from the invisible world and is taken in hand by the lunar god of generation, Jehovah, through his ambassador, the angel Gabriel, is esoterically the first point of Cancer. This is the cardinal sign of the watery triplicity and is ruled by the moon. There, conception takes place. But were the form built of water and its concretions alone, it could never come to birth. So 4 months later, when the fetus has reached the stage of development corresponding to the second sign of the watery triplicity, Scorpio, the 8th sign, which corresponds to the house of death, Samael, the dauntless ambassador of the Lucifer spirits, invades the watery domain of the lunar hierarchy and introduces the fiery spark of the spirit into the inert form, to leaven, quicken, and mold it into an expression of itself. There, the silver cord, which has grown from the seed atom of the dense body, located in the heart, since conception, is welded to the part that has sprouted from the central vortex of the desire body, located in the liver. And when the silver cord is tied by the seed atom of the vital body, located in the solar plexus, the spirit dies to life in the supersensible world and quickens the body it is to use in its coming earth life. And I'm going to pause there, folks. There's a lot encapsulated of ideas in here. So first of all, it's saying that human conception is determined by the sky clock, so to say here. And it's not completely wrong, because the human menstrual cycle runs concurrent to the lunar cycles, doesn't it? So you could see how these ideas are all encapsulated here. But it says here, and this applies back to some of the different concepts we talked about before, how many of the occultists believe that the human fetus doesn't really gain a spirit, so to say, until the third month or fourth month of gestation. So that's what this is talking about here when it's saying in the fourth month, the Lucifer spirit comes in and introduces the fiery spark of spirit into the inert form. So that being said, what this does, or what they claim here, is because the physical being, okay, because once again, when you look at the ideas of these philosophical elements, fire and air usually equate to spiritual ideas or spiritual aspects, and water and earth to physical. So they're saying here, the physical body is being made, and then the fire idea comes in, the spirit comes in, and once the spirit is introduced into this form, then what happens is they claim, through all these different worlds here, because they claim you have a fourfold body and 4 different manifestations in different planes of existence. And one they call the desire body, the vital body, the mind body. These equate to astral, ethereal, these different ideas. Okay, so this is what many of these secret societies believe. So they believe once the spirit enters into the physical manifestation here, then all these things happen. These different bodies, they connect because of this seed atom through this silver cord idea. So this silver cord connects at these different chakra points within the body, okay? And they connect into these different realms or worlds, so to say. So it says here then, the idea is that the spirit dies. See? Because the spirit, before it becomes attached to this physical form, exists in a supersensory type spirit world where it could see and understand and know things and see things. So what happens when the spirit gets attached to the physical? It dies in the spiritual realm, see, and becomes then attached to this body for its upcoming earth life. This is what they claim, okay? So with that being said, I figured I'd try to explain that out a little bit more, in a more descriptive fashion than what it really gives here. But that's the basic idea that it's saying. So let's continue on. I hope people are still with me and, are understanding what I'm trying to explain here. Let's get back to the reading, though. This life on Earth lasts until the course of events foreshadowed in the Wheel of Life, the horoscope, has been run. And when the spirit again reaches the realm of Samael, the angel of death, the mystic 8th house, the silver cord is loosed, and the spirit returns to God who gave it, until the dawn of another life day in the school of earth beckons it to a new birth, that it may acquire more skill in the arts and crafts of temple building. So I'm going to pause there, folks. So it says here's that idea of the silver cord again, okay? Many people who've studied anything like astral projection or many of these occult sciences, these philosophies of different realms and different planes of existence and things like that, know through a lot of these different stories and stuff we've seen and heard, and many of the different descriptions we're given, that this silver cord attaches your soul body to your physical body. So what happens when you actually die, the silver cord is loosed, it says here, or severed, and death approaches. So you return to the realm of the dead, or the realm of Samael, the angel of death. See? So this is what they claim to be the mystic 8th house, and there's the number 8, which is, always associated with Mercury, okay, Hermes, Prometheus, Lucifer. It goes on and on and on. So there's the number 8 idea. It's the trickster idea, and it also relates to the idea of time. There's a lot of different things encapsulated with the number 8, but that's a discussion for another day. But so, see, it says here, it describes that, so the silver cord's loosed and the spirit returns to God through the realm of death there, and returns to God until the dawn of another life day in the school of earth beckons to a new birth, where it may acquire more skill in the arts and crafts of temple building. So there he's, appeasing the Masonic tradition there. Temple building, see, you're building your soul. That's what it's talking about, temple building. The building of the soul, the building of the temple without walls, so to say. The temple of the mind, the temple of the soul. Anyway, let's get back to the reading. So, about 5 months after the quickening, when the last of the watery signs, Pisces, has been passed, the representative of the Lucifer spirits, Samael, focuses the forces of the fiery sign Aries, where Mars is positively polarized, so that under the impulse of their dynamic energy, the waters of the womb are voided, and the imprisoned spirit is liberated into the physical world to fight the battle of life. Okay, going to pause there, folks. So, see how it jumps back from that last idea there that it was talking about, where it talks about after the first 4 months, okay, the spirit is placed into the newly formed body of the fetus, and then it's saying after about 5 more months, then there's the quickening. See, and it's talking about how this idea, because of the fire idea, this soul is released into the physical world now. Okay, so the soul is born, manifest in the physical body here. So that's what it's talking about, because of these different machinations of the sky clock, so to say, and how these ideas relate with that. So that's what it's talking about. So let's get back to the reading, though. It may blindly butt its head against the cosmic forces typified by the first of the fiery signs, Aries the ram, which is a symbol of the brute strength brought to bear upon the problems of life by the most primitive races. Or it may adopt the more modern method of cunning as a means of attaining mastery over others, which characteristic is indicated in the second of the fiery signs, Leo, the lion, the king of beasts, or perchance it may rise above the animal nature and aim at the stars with the bow of spiritual aspiration typified by the last of the fiery signs, Sagittarius, the centaur. The centaur is just ahead of the watery sign, Scorpio, a warning that one who tries to reach the prerogative as Freemason, and that's spelled P-H-R-E-E-M-E-S-S-E-N, Freemason, which means son of light, and it says here, a son of light, will surely feel the sting of the scorpion in his heel, which will goad him onward upon the path where men become wise as serpents. It is from this class that mystic masonry is recruited, with men who have the indomitable courage to dare, the unflagging energy to do, and the diplomatic discrimination to be silent. And that's an important key point right there, to be silent, because it all depends upon secrecy. See, they want to keep these secrets of the ages from all of the profane folks. It's always the same thing. They're so much better and more enlightened than us. And we're going to get to why they think this way and who they think they are as we continue on here. But that was the end of the chapter here. And we're going to move on and do the next chapter, because we'll see many other important ideas coming to bear there. But did you catch that? The idea Freemason? Freemason, son of light, a son of fire and light, it says here. That's what Freemason means. Son of fire and light. So once again, they're invoking these archetypes of these, philosophical elemental ideas. So it's saying that Freemasons, or the Mystic Masons, as it were, are recruited based upon their indomitable courage to dare, their unflagging energy to do, and their diplomatic discrimination to be silent. So if they can keep their mouths shut, and they are productive in doing things, and they're brave enough to dare to try to do things, then they will be recruited. See, and that's how many of these things work. You don't just go down to the local lodge and knock on the door and ask to be let in. You can do that, but there's a process. Don't you understand? You have to have somebody vouch for you within the organization, first of all, and then they vote for you. And if a black ball shows up in that vote, you don't get initiated into the order. See? So usually all these things, especially when you get to the higher points, the higher degrees of these organizations, you have to have somebody ahead of you in the organization that's pulling for you, or directly kind of recruits you in such a sense. So even though they claim they don't actively recruit, they sort of do when you get to the higher levels here. They look for people that they think have these different attributes that they look for within these organizations. Can they keep the secret? See, that's one of the primary things they look for. Are you going to keep your mouth shut? Because that's important, because when you do unscrupulous things at the topmost levels of these organizations, you got to keep your mouth shut. Okay, they don't want any of that getting out. It's okay to talk about your spaghetti dinners and your charities to the children's hospitals and stuff like that, but you don't want any of your dirty little secrets getting out, do you? So, that being the case, let's move on here to the next section. Every mystic movement has its legend, which tells in symbolic language its status in the cosmic order and the ideal with which it tries to realize. From the Old Testament, containing the Atlantean mystery teaching, we learn that mankind was created male, female, bisexual, and that each one was capable of propagating his species without the cooperation of another, as is the case with some plants today. Later on, we are informed Jehovah removed one pole of the creative force from Adam, the early humanity, and that there were henceforth two sexes. The esoteric teaching supplements this information by stating that the purpose of this change was to use one pole of the creative force for the building of a brain and larynx, wherewith mankind might acquire knowledge and express itself in speech. The intimate connection between the organs, brain, larynx, and genitals is evident to anyone upon the slightest examination of facts. The boy's voice changing at puberty, the mental deficiency resulting from overindulgence of the passional nature, and the inarticulate speech of the mentally defective, with many other facts which may be added to prove this assertion. Gonna pause there, folks. So right out of the gate, once again, they're referring back to these old evolutionary ideas within the occult science. So see, when man was plant-like, and, up until the advent of Jehovah here, he was two-sexed. So he was able to propagate from himself without another. There was no male-female distinction until such time that Jehovah here divided the genders. Okay, male and female, divided this generative force. Okay, so that, once again, and that's not the first time we've heard this, if you've been following me for any length of time. This is one of the things that they believe. Okay, and this is something why they think we have this gift of intellect. Okay, is because of this idea that half of our generative force is turned upwards to develop the brain and the larynx and, the higher mental capacities of the human being from the animal. Anyway, let's move on in the reading here. According to the Bible, our earliest parents were forbidden to eat of the tree of knowledge, but Eve, seduced by the serpent, did eat and later induced the man to follow her example. And I'm going to pause there, folks. Okay, first off, this is a little bit disingenuous, okay? Because it's saying, according to the Bible, our earliest parents were forbidden to eat of the tree of knowledge. No. According to the Bible, it was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not the tree of knowledge. Okay, so there's a little bit of disingenuousness in this teaching right out of the gate, okay? So let's continue on, though. So it says here, Eve, seduced by the serpent, did eat and later induced the man to follow her example. Who the serpents are and what the tree of knowledge is may also be determined from certain passages in the Bible. We are told, for instance, that Christ exhorted his disciples to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. The so-called curse pronounced upon Eve after her confession declares that she must bear her children in sorrow and pain, and that the race will die. It has always been a great stumbling block to Bible commentators as to what connection there could be between the eating of an apple, death, and painful parturition. But when we are acquainted with the chaste expressions of the Bible, which designates the creative act by such passages as Adam knew Eve, and she bore Abel, how can I bear a child seeing I know not a man, etc., it is very evident that the tree of knowledge is a symbolical expression for the creative act. Then it is plain that the serpents taught Eve how to perform the creative act, and that Eve instructed Adam. And I'm going to pause there, folks. So you see the argument they're making here. First of all, they're claiming that it's always been a great stumbling block to Bible commentators as to what the connection could be between eating of an apple and death and painful parturition. That's not a true statement, folks. There's many Bible commentators that are not stumped by that idea. And it doesn't even say in the Bible that it was an apple. Nowhere in the Bible does it say it was an apple. And most of your Bible commentators will make that, assertion. It's just traditionally what's been kind of shown in the artwork because it was an easy fruit to draw, I guess. But that's not part of the story, and it's not a stumbling block for these people, as this guy claims. But anyway, let's get back to it. So he's equating the tree of knowledge, and it was the tree of knowledge of good and evil that man was not supposed to eat from, but he's calling it the tree of knowledge, okay, and he's saying that this must be about the creative act. It must be a symbol for the creative act. So with that being said, it says here, then it is plain that the serpents taught Eve, and it says serpents, plural, okay? And it's talking about serpents, plural, not serpent, like it says in the Bible. So there's more disingenuousness there. But anyway, then it is plain that the serpents taught Eve how to perform the creative act, and that Eve instructed Adam. Therefore, Christ designated the serpents as harmful while admitting their wisdom. To get at the identity of the serpent, it is necessary to invoke the esoteric teaching, which points them out as the martial Lucifer spirits, rulers of the serpentine sign Scorpio. Their initiates, even so late as the Egyptian dynasty, wore the uraeus or serpent symbol in their forehead as a sign of their source of wisdom. So I'm going to pause there again, folks. So you see, the Rosicrucians here equate the identity of the serpent or serpents as the Lucifer spirits, or these Martian beings, these martial spirits. See, from Mars. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You see all this stuff, how it never ends? Never ends. Anyway, once again, they invoke these archetypal ideas all the time. So you could see the idea of Mars and the serpent and Scorpio all being compared together. And then they always try to tie it back to Egypt, because Egypt was where the ancient mystery schools found their perfection in many of their teachings. So that being the case, they tie it forward to the Egyptians. Let's get back to the reading, though, and see what else Mr. Heindel has to say here. As a consequence of this unauthorized use of the creative force, humanity ceased to be ethereal and crystallized into the coats of skin or physical body, which now hides from them the gods who dwell in the invisible realms. And great was their sorrow at this loss. Gonna pause there, folks. So there's an important idea. So when man sinned and woman sinned, when they defied this order of God and ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or as they say here, just when they ate of the tree of knowledge, or they performed the creative act or the sex act for the first time, then what happened was their spiritual form or their ethereal form ceased to be and crystallized into a physical form here. The coats of skin, it says here, kind of equating the idea to the Bible idea, or the physical body, which now hides from them the gods who dwell in the invisible realms. And great was their sorrow at this loss. So it cuts them off from spirit, from this realm of spirit. And there is a sort of truth tied up in this, because according to the Bible, man choosing to disobey God and to go ahead and commit this original sin, he separated himself from God, from the Spirit of God. Okay, so therefore he was bound in the physical world here, in the physical realm, and lost sight of many spiritual things. But anyway, excuse me, let's get back to the reading. Generation had been originally established by the angels under Jehovah. It was then performed in great temples under propitious planetary conditions, and parturition was then painless, as it is today among wild animals where the creative function is not abused for the purpose of gratifying the senses. And I'm going to pause there, folks. There is another disingenuous statement. It says generation had been originally established by the angels under Jehovah. Okay? So now they're saying, okay, Jehovah's subordinates came up with the idea of separating these creative forces, turning one half of man's creative force upward and creating the separate sexes here. Okay, so then that's also a contradiction of what it tells you earlier in this same text, that Jehovah did that. Okay, now it's saying the angels under Jehovah did that, and that they oversaw man's procreation in these great temples under propitious planetary conditions, and parturition was then painless, as it is today among the animals, where the creative function is not abused for the purpose of gratifying the senses. So, you see how this is a subtle cue that the different secret societies take up later, and even, back in the biblical times, the different things that were going on with the different types of worship of these different quote-unquote gods in the different temples and mystery schools and Baal worship and all of these other entities or spirits that they worshiped, these gods that they worshipped. It's the same thing. They performed these sex acts in the great temples under these certain conditions, and it was all a giant orgy. Okay? So that's what this is talking about. This is claiming that, generation had been established by the angels under the rule of Jehovah, and that this is how they did it. They held these massive orgies in temples. So you could see how some of these ideas don't add up to the same things that we see within the different religious philosophies and stuff like that. Anyway, let's continue on here to the next part. Degeneration resulted from the ignorant and unauthorized abuse inaugurated by the Lucifer spirits. Okay, gonna pause there. So you see, degeneration resulted from the ignorant and unauthorized abuse inaugurated by the Lucifer spirits. So, they're basically blaming man here, okay, for degeneration, because, see, man was ignorant and he abused these these different ideas that were given by the Lucifer spirits. Okay, so you see, man was given. This is what this is saying now. So man was given this knowledge of how to procreate. Okay, the creative idea here, the generative idea. So the Lucifer spirits showed him how to reproduce, or taught Eve, the serpent taught Eve, the Lucifer spirits taught Eve this thing, and then she in turn taught Adam, or the man, and then man and woman learned how to procreate. So then it's saying here, even though in the last sentence there it said generation had originally been established by the angels under Jehovah, and this is how they did it, was in this orgy type idea within the temple under certain conditions and stuff like that. And it wasn't for the purpose of gratifying the senses. Oh, no. But then they're saying degeneration resulted when man abused these things here, the sex act or the sex force. See? And so, once again, they're throwing the plausible deniability aspect into here, even though they say that, it was established here, but then, the Lucifer spirits, well, because man abused what was given them by the Lucifer spirits, that's the problem. It's not the fact that the Lucifer spirits disobeyed the divine decree and rebelled and went against the order and did all this stuff and gave man this knowledge and stuff like that. No, it's not. It's deflecting blame from the Lucifer spirits back onto man, which isn't totally incorrect, because man is given a choice, okay, when it comes down to it, and man has made man's choice. So, but let's continue on. Regeneration must be undertaken in order to restore man to his lost estate as a spiritual being and to free him from this body of death wherein he is now encrusted. Death must be swallowed up in immortality. Gonna pause there. That's not entirely wrong, is it? We are kind of encrusted in this body that is finite and will perish. And in order to restore ourselves as a spiritual being, we do need to take on this immortality. See? But how do we do that? That's the thing. And we're going to get further into that as we read on here. So let's continue with the reading. And remember, this is straight from the Rosicrucians, folks. This is right out of the horse's mouth. This is the stuff they believe. And this is not me like just making this stuff up or telling you this. This is legitimately what they believe, what they teach, and what they act upon in this world, these things. So let's read on. To attain this object, a covenant was made with humanity when it was expelled from the garden of God to wander in the wilderness of the world. According to that plan, a tabernacle was built after a pattern planned by God, Jehovah, and an ark symbolical of the human spirit was placed in it. Its staves were never taken out of their place, to show that man is a pilgrim on the earth and may never rest until he reaches the goal. There was within it a golden pot with manna, and it says in parentheses, man, fallen from heaven, together with a statement of the divine laws which man must learn in his pilgrimage through the wilderness of matter. The symbolic ark also contained a magic wand, an emblem of the spiritual powers called Aaron's rod, which are now latent in everyone on his way to the haven of rest, the mystic temple of Solomon. The Old Testament also tells how humanity was miraculously led and provided for, how after the warfare with the world it was given peace and prosperity by the before mentioned King Solomon. In short, stripped of all embellishments, the story relates the salient facts of man's descent from heaven, his principal metamorphoses, his transgressions of the laws of the God Jehovah would wish to guide him in the future, till he reaches the kingdom of heaven, the land of peace, and again docilely follows the lead of the divine ruler. The Masonic legend has points of variance from, as well as agreement with, the Bible story. It states that Jehovah created Eve, that the Lucifer spirit Samael united with her, but that he was ousted by Jehovah and forced to leave her before the birth of her son Cain, who was thus the son of a widow. Then Jehovah created Adam to be the husband of Eve, and from their union Abel was born. Thus, from the beginning, there have been two kinds of people in the world, one begotten by the Lucifer spirit Samael and partaking of a semi-divine nature, imbued with the dynamic martial energy inherited from this divine ancestry, is aggressive, progressive, and possessed of great initiative, but impatient of restraint or authority, whether human or divine. This class is loath to take things on faith and prone to prove all things through the light of reason. These people believe in works rather than faith, and by their dauntless courage and inexhaustible energy, they have transformed the trackless wilderness of the world to a garden full of life and beauty, so lovely, in fact, that the sons of Cain have forgotten the garden of God, the kingdom of heaven, whence they were expelled by the decree of the lunar god Jehovah. Against him they are in constant rebellion because he has tied them by the umbilical cable toe. They have lost their spiritual sight and are imprisoned in the forehead of the body, where it is said Cain was marked. They must wander as prodigal sons in the comparative darkness of the material world, oblivious to their high and noble estate, until they find the door of the temple and ask and receive light. Then, as Freemason or children of light, they are instructed in methods of building a new temple without sound of hammer. And when the spirit realizes that it is far from its heavenly home, a prodigal feeding upon the unsatisfactory husks of the material world, that apart from the Father it is poor, naked, and blind, when it knocks at the door of a mystic temple like that of the Rosicrucians and asks for light, when it receives the desired instruction after due qualification by building an ethereal soul body, a temple or house eternal in the heavens, not made with hands and without sound of hammer, when its nakedness is clothed with that house, see Corinthians 4:5, then the neophyte receives the Word, the open sesame to the inner worlds, and learns to travel in foreign parts in the invisible worlds. There he takes soul flights into heavenly regions and qualifies for higher degrees, under more direct instruction from the grand architect of the universe, who fashioned both heaven and earth. And I'm going to pause there, folks. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the secret societies, all of these things. There it is, in their own words. They think themselves semi-divine. They're the sons of gods. Okay? And we of the other... Well, we'll get there. We didn't even get there yet, did we? About the other half of this story. But this is who these people believe they are. They believe they're the sons of Cain. They believe Cain was begotten by Samael, the Lucifer spirit, see, with Eve. They believe that God created Eve first, woman came first, and then, later, God made man. So you see how this differs from the biblical teaching that man was made first and then woman was made from his rib, from his side. See? This is a total change of direction with that. So these people, they believe that they have a semi-divine bloodline, that they are half angelic, a half, of this Lucifer spirit. They believe that their salvation will be through their works or through the use of their intellect. They believe that they are the builders of this world. They're the people that do things, okay? Let's continue on, because there's a lot more ideas caught up in this whole battle for the minds of men here. See? But anyway, this is who the large portion of these people in these power elite groups that run the world, this is who they believe they are. They believe that they are the sons of Cain. See? And all this stuff always ties back to these core archetypal ideas once again. So you could see here, this is what they believe. All right? This is from their own words, right out of the horse's mouth, not me saying this stuff about them. They're saying it about themselves. So let's continue with the reading here, and let's see what other information we could suss out of this here chapter that we're looking at. So it says here, such is the temperament of the widow's sons, inherited from their divine progenitor Samael, and given by him to their ancestor Cain. Their past history is a struggle with adverse conditions. Their achievement is victory wrested from all opposing forces by indomitable courage and persistent effort, unchecked by temporary defeat. On the other hand, while Cain, governed by divine ambition, toiled and tilled the soil to make 2 blades of grass grow where there was only one, Abel, the human progeny of human parents, and that's all in capital letters, folks, Abel, the human progeny of human parents, felt no urge or unrest, himself a creature of Jehovah through Adam and Eve. He was perfectly contented to tend the flocks, also created by God, and to accept a livelihood from their divinely begotten increase without labor or exercising initiative. And I'm going to pause there, folks. If you've ever done any kind of animal husbandry or raised animals of any sort or done any farming or anything of the sort, you know that, that's not true. Raising animals and, reproducing animals is a lot of hard work, okay? So, you see here how the Rosicrucian Order and the secret schools, they try to portray Abel, or the human lineage here, the regular human being, as being lazy and everything else. Lazy and docile and everything else. See, that's how they try to portray them here. But let's get back to the reading. Excuse me. So we'll read that again. So, it says here, Abel, the human progeny of human parents, felt no urge or unrest, himself a creature of Jehovah through Adam and Eve. He was perfectly contented to tend the flocks also created by God, and to accept a livelihood from their divinely begotten increase without labor or exercising initiative. This docile attitude was most pleasing to the God Jehovah, who was extremely jealous of his prerogative as the creator. Okay? Excuse me. Therefore, he cordially accepted the offer of Abel, obtained without effort or initiative, but scorned the offering of Cain because, derived through his own divine creative instinct akin to that of Jehovah, Cain then slew Abel, but did not thereby exterminate the docile creatures of Jehovah, for we are told Adam knew Eve again, and she bore Seth. Seth had the same characteristics as Abel, and transmitted them to his descendants, who to this day continue to trust the Lord for everything, and who live by faith and not by work. And that's all in capital letters, folks, who live by faith and not by work. So you see the attitude that these people have about anybody who is a devout Christian, who, lives by faith. This is, in their view, this is lazy. Okay, this is docile. This is not something honorable in their view. See? Anyway, let's get back to the reading. By arduous and energetic application to the world's work, the sons of Cain have acquired worldly wisdom and temporal power. They have been captains of industry and masters of statecraft, and statecraft is all in caps, folks. While the sons of Seth, looking to the Lord for guidance, have become the avenue for divine and spiritual wisdom. They constitute the priestcraft, and priestcraft's all in caps too. The animosity of Cain and Abel has been perpetuated from generation to generation among their respective descendants. Nor could it be otherwise, because one class, as temporal rulers, aim to lift humanity to physical well-being through conquest of the material world, while the priesthood is their role as spiritual guides urge their followers to forsake the wicked world, the vale of tears, and look to God for comfort. One school aims to turn out master workmen skilled in the use of tools wherewith they may wrest a livelihood from the earth, which was cursed by their divine adversary Jehovah. I'm going to pause there, folks. Did you catch that subtle language there? Their divine adversary, Jehovah. Adversary. See? Anyway, back to the reading. The other produces master magicians, skilled in the use of the tongue in invocation, and by the use of the tongue they gain support from the toilers here, and pray themselves and their charges into heaven hereafter. Gonna pause there, folks. Here's the deal, okay? Sons of Cain, the philosophers of fire, so to say. The Masons, these secret society groups, they see themselves as the masters of statecraft. Okay, these are your politicians. These are politicians, folks. The statecraft. Okay. Now, they make the distinction here that the sons of Abel, or the sons of Seth, the sons of Seth, this other line, the human line here, they were the priestcraft. They constitute the priestcraft. Well, and as part of the priestcraft, they were viewed as master magicians. So, anyway, you could see we have these two different distinctions here. Statecraft and priestcraft. All right? And we'll get there. Let's continue on with the reading. We got a little bit more to go, and then we'll tie together some loose ends and make things abundantly clear for you here. So, continuing on. After the future in store for the sons of Cain and their followers, the temple legend is also most eloquent. It states that from Cain descended Methuselah, who invented writing, Tubal-Cain, a cunning worker in metals, and Jubal, who originated music. In short, and this is all in capitals now, folks, the next part I'm going to read. In short, the sons of Cain are the originators of the arts and crafts. Therefore, when Jehovah chose Solomon, the scion of the race of Seth, to build a house for his name, the sublime spirituality of a long line of divinely guided ancestors flowered into the conception of the magnificent temple called Solomon's Temple, though Solomon has only the instrument to carry out the divine plan revealed by Jehovah to David. But Solomon was unable to execute the divine design in concrete form. Therefore, it became necessary for him to apply to King Hiram of Tyre, the descendant of Cain, who selected Hiram Abiff, the son of a widow, as all Freemasons are called because of their relation of their divine progenitor with Eve. So you're going to pause there, folks. There it is again, the son of a widow. Now, why do Freemasons call themselves sons of a widow? Well, because they see themselves as the son of divinity here. They're part divine, see? The divine progenitor with Eve. Lucifer, if you will. They're the sons of Lucifer, or the Lucifer spirits, or Samael, to be correct. Anyway, but let's continue on. Hiram Abiff then became Grand Master of the army of construction. In him the arts and crafts of all the sons of Cain who had gone before had flowered. He was skilled beyond all others in the work of the world, without which the plan of Jehovah must have remained forever a divine dream, and could never have become a concrete reality. The worldly acumen of the sons of Cain was as necessary to the completion of this temple as the spiritual conception of the sons of Seth, and therefore, during the period of construction, the two classes joined forces, the underlying enmity being hidden under a superficial show of amity. It was indeed the first attempt to unite them, and had that been accomplished, the world history from then on would have been altered in a very material manner. Gonna pause there, folks. So here's the deal. God gave the divine plan to Solomon for this temple. Solomon, because, he's just a lowly human, couldn't put this thing together. So he required, these semi-divine sons of the widow here to do this, to bring it into material manifestation of reality here, because only they are skilled enough and good enough and smart enough to do this. Do you catch all of this subtext in here of what they're saying? So, that being the case, they had to join forces to do this, and this is a total. This is totally one of those things too that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so these sons of of light, these philosophers of fire, these sons of Cain, they are the they see themselves as being adversarial to Jehovah. So why would they volunteer to build a temple to Jehovah in this sense? See, there's something disingenuous about it from the get-go. All right? So this is how the story goes. Let's continue to tell their story, even though if you start to think about it for a minute, it doesn't add up or make sense, okay? And we'll get to more of that later. So here's the thing here. It says, though, so the underlying enmity being hidden under a superficial show of amity. They joined forces to do this. So let's continue on here. But then it says that, and had this been accomplished, the world history from then on would have altered in a very material manner. So what else does it say here? Let's continue on. The sons of Cain, descended from the fiery Lucifer spirits, were naturally proficient in the use of fire. By it, the metals hoarded by Solomon and his ancestors were melted into altars, lavers, and vessels of various kinds. Pillars were fashioned by workmen under the direction of Hiram Abiff, and arches to rest upon them. The great edifice was nearing completion when he made ready to cast the molten sea, which was to be the crowning effort, his masterpiece. It was in the construction of this great work that the treachery of the sons of Seth became manifest and frustrated the divine plan of reconciliation. Okay, so I'm going to pause there, folks, okay? So they're attempting to make this molten sea, okay? And this was going to be their crowning achievement here, their crowning effort, the masterpiece. It was in the construction of this great work that the treachery of the sons of Seth became manifest and frustrated the divine plan of reconciliation. So you see, these same sons of fire who claim to be adversarial to Jehovah, they're claiming now that this was the divine plan of reconciliation, but the sons of Seth were actually treacherous about it and betrayed them. Okay. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? Think about that. Yeah, we're going to go work for our adversary, our enemy, and help him build this temple. And then we're going to get mad when, they call us out on what we're doing. That's what it sounds like to me. But anyway, let's continue with the reading. Back to what they're saying. So, they tried to quench the fire used by Hiram Abiff with their natural weapon, water, and almost succeeded. The incidents which led up to this catastrophe, their meaning, and the sequel will be related in the next chapter. And we're going to stop right there, folks, and maybe we'll continue on with this reading to see what else it has to say about that. But here's the thing, okay? Here's what happened, okay? Here's the thing I have researched, and this is probably, I don't have any direct proof of this, but it seems that this may be actually what happened with this, okay? They're talking about, and remember, all of this stuff, these are allegorical tales, okay? These are allegorical tales. So it's talking about these sons of Cain and the sons of Seth. The sons of Cain here claim that they tried to make reconciliation with the sons of Seth because they wanted to... well, here's the thing, okay? Think about what we had alluded to earlier. The sons of Cain, see, these were the statecraft, the masters of the statecraft, okay? The sons of Seth, they were the masters of the priestcraft. So, who really calls the shots in this world? Well, it's always been the secret priest kings behind the altars, hasn't it? That are directing things. Because whether the masters of statecraft like it or not, there are some natural forces and things that they kind of had lost sight of through their hubris and through their building of unnatural things, things opposed to the natural world. So they sought solace with these priestcraft, the ones who still understood some of the natural workings, the ones that they described in here as being master magicians. See, so here is what happened. The sons of Cain, these philosophers of fire, they wanted to solidify their power in this world by merging the statecraft with the priestcraft. Okay, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but maybe we'll continue another part of this and read a little further in this book next time, just to see what Mr. Heindel has to say about this. But what I have discovered is, see, here's the thing: these sons of Cain, these sons of fire, these ones who have to provide their own salvation. See, that we went through that. They have to find their own way, their own salvation, and they see themselves as being able to do that through their divinely inspired intellect here. So what they wanted to do was to not only be masters of statecraft in the material world here, but they wanted to try to seize back these spiritual ideas that they had lost. See, that they were separated from, that they were imprisoned in this physical form and are separated from. Now, here's the thing, okay? They're claiming that they're freed by this by doing these initiatory rites, right? And going through these different initiations, joining these secret societies, and finding the quote-unquote the light, all right? Well, if that's the case, if they could do that on their own, then why were they trying to reconcile with the sons of Seth? See? And here it is. This is what had happened. They wanted to merge statecraft with priestcraft. So they wanted to learn the ways of these magicians, these master magicians, themselves. So this is what they aspired to do. They wanted to try to make reconciliation. And when they failed with reconciliation, they decided to try to use other subvertive type methods to do so. So what actually happened, and like I said, this is mostly conjecture on my part, but I do see some evidence to back it up. I haven't really put all the correlating work together to really flesh it out totally. But in my view, what has happened here is they decided to take hold of these different old occult sciences and alchemical philosophies, and they decided to merge the statecraft with the priestcraft. And when they failed to do so here, in this story, with the building of Solomon's temple, they decided that they would try again later. And in my view, I think they have succeeded with it, and they did this during the fall of the Roman Empire. For you see that the Roman Empire never truly fell. The masters of the statecraft of Rome, they transformed themselves. They performed an alchemical wedding with the masters of the priestcraft, and they combined these two great entities, the Roman Empire and the Church, together, and they formed the Vatican. And they alchemically combined these things, and they have since ruled the world from behind the scenes, and concurrently with the advent of the Vatican and the rise of this massive Catholic Church, which, Heindel's talking about here, Catholicism and Freemasonry, how they're polar opposites. Well, they combine these together in an alchemical union of sorts, and have actually used them to proliferate throughout the world, to gain footholds and control all over the place through these different concepts. So it's been largely the Sons of Fire have taken over within the halls of the priestcraft, and in trying to attain these spiritual things, but they they seem to lose sight of the physical, so therefore they're trying to steer things towards the hyper-materialist view, wherein everything is all tied to the physical, folks, because that's what they have control over. They don't have, how should we say, they don't have dominion in spiritual things, see, whereas the sons of Seth do. So this is kind of a strange thing that has happened. So they've merged these ideas and they've put forward the Vatican, but it's still something that's incomplete. And the next phase of it directly relates to the next step in human evolution, or transhumanism, and that's what they're pushing towards now. So that's why they're trying to lock in this total panopticon control grid that they're doing, because the next step is to merge the minds of men with machines and totally lock in this hyper-materialist viewpoint, or, lock man completely into the physical. See? So that's, in my view, the next step. But at any rate, I think we're going to call it quits there for tonight. And so you could see how these ideas have all played out in the modern age. And you could see how they've hit upon these archetypes, these philosophical elemental archetypes, and how they've used them to manipulate, and what it is that they think they are, or who they are, and who it is that they think the rest of us are. The ones of us that they call the profane. They think us to be just the lowly subhumans. See, they're the only ones that are truly human, because they have this divine, this semi-divine bloodline. It's all about bloodlines with these people too. And there it is. I gave it to you in their own words. They literally believe they are the sons of Cain, who was the son of Samael, the fallen angelic being, the Lucifer spirit, related to martial ideas, or the idea of Mars. Why are they so, enamored with going to Mars? Well, it would be the reunification of the Lucifer spirits. See, it would be the total rise of power of the Lucifer spirits, in a sense here. That's what they're talking about. They see their heritage as being from there. They really think that they are descendants from beings from Mars. You see why they push that idea? Because that's where the Lucifer spirits reside. See? So, that being the case, they push these ideas, and, they push these narratives of alien beings, Martians, we're descended from Martians. So, that's why they're fascinated with the planet Mars. They want to get there. That's why they promulgate the idea of, maybe we actually are descendants from people from Mars. Maybe there was life once on Mars, and we're their descendants, that kind of thing. So, you could see where these ideas come from now, when you look back at these things and understand what it is they're working towards. And what they're working towards is the transhumanist goal. Because, see, they are masters over the physical realm here, the statecraft. And they've tried, somewhat successfully, to incorporate the spiritual side of things with the priestcraft, which were traditionally the sons of Seth. So, having done these things, they're trying to tie all the spiritual aspects, the spiritual side of things, into the material world here, or the hyper-materialist viewpoint. So that being the case, they could quench the spiritual ideas of man and keep man firmly founded in the physical here. That's why there's things like atheism and secular humanism, and, you keep people's heads out of the spiritual realms and focused solely on physical things here. That's why they promote the idea of this is all there is. See? And, this is why they hide the existence of God from man. This is why they hide the nature of what space is from man. Because they don't want man to believe that there is a higher being, there's a creator being that created all of us. They want man to think this is all there is, so that they could keep him trapped here and become God themselves. See? When this is all there is the hyper, or the hypermaterial, or the digital world. This is the ultimate form of hypermaterialism. The digital world, folks. Virtual realities, things of that nature. This is what they're working towards. This is why. This is what they believe. This is who they think they are. They think they're semi-divine beings that have the God-given right to rule. And they've been separated from the spiritual. And they have grand ambitions. And they think that they can achieve, through their own works, a sort of salvation and become God here in the material world. And this is what they work towards, and this is why they keep going for this transhumanist type goal. So this is what we're looking at, and here it is, right in their own words. It's not conjecture to say that they believe that they are semi-divine beings or that they're of a royal bloodline. They truly do, and it's right there in their own words. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here for tonight, folks. I hope you have a good one. Thanks for listening along, and we'll catch you next time. And we may actually go ahead and continue through this book and see what other parts of this we could get out there. Have a good night. Come with me.